In 2010, the wife of Kuan Yew, a wealthy Singaporean man, Geok Choo, passed away suddenly. Kuan Yew was overwhelmed with sadness and panic. He could hardly believe that his wife of 63 years had passed away just like that. It was as if the scene of her wearing a wedding dress and smiling was only yesterday. He could still hear her calling him in private when no one was around. At Geok Choo's funeral, Kuan Yew had to admit that the woman he loved had gone ahead of him, leaving behind a beautiful life. He had always hoped that every day of his life would be spent with her. Throughout his life, he accomplished many great things, but the most unforgettable was his marriage to Geok Choo. In 1947, the two secretly married in the United Kingdom. Their love remained strong throughout their lives. At his final farewell to her, the white-haired Kuan Yew said goodbye to her twice. Every time he saw her, he was filled with affection. Looking back, one might wonder, why did they secretly marry in the UK? When did they meet? What did Geok Choo experience with Kuan Yew? In 1946, Kuan Yew, full of worries, boarded a ship bound for the UK. Before boarding, he turned around to look at the land where he had grown up, filled with emotions. At that moment, he had to make a decision. As a man of ambition and determination, he understood that only by completing his studies and building a career could he win respect and the woman he loved. He went to the UK not only to study, but also for another important reason: to be worthy of his exceptional girlfriend, Geok Choo. Geok Choo was a wealthy young lady. Her father was a bank manager. Having grown up in a British-educated family, she received the best education. Under her parents' strict supervision, she became graceful and composed. Her personal charm stood out. With her strong family background, she naturally had no shortage of admirers. Kuan Yew knew that his own family was poor and that he could not meet her parents' expectations, so he wanted to achieve success and prove his worth to her family. After deciding to study in the UK, he told Geok Choo about his plan, fearing that someone else might win her heart while he was gone. That day, the two of them walked side by side. Their pace was slow. They both knew that her boyfriend was preparing to go abroad. Geok Choo was very supportive. Holding Lee's hand, she reminded him that he would inevitably feel homesick when he was alone. "If something happens," she said, "you must write to me." Her understanding nature made Lee feel as sweet as honey. But when he thought about their days together coming to an end, he couldn't help but feel sad. His emotions showed instantly. His brows furrowed. Sensing his distress, Geok Choo gently smoothed the creases on his forehead and asked softly, "What's wrong? Are you worried you won't adapt after going to the UK?" Lee shook his head and said honestly, "I'm just afraid of losing you. Will you wait for me to come back?" Hearing this, Geok Choo was touched. She was already in her 20s, an age when many around her were married and even had children. In that era, youth was precious for women. Once wrinkles began to appear, the most beautiful and energetic years slowly slipped away. Although she had read many classics and seen different kinds of love, she was not sure if his feelings would remain the same after a long separation. So she asked, "Do you know that I'm 2 years older than you?" Hearing that, the weight on Lee's heart lifted. He replied, "A gap of 2 years doesn't matter. As long as our love can withstand the distance, we'll have a good life together." Crossing the sea to Britain, Lee found the cold, damp climate very different from the warmth of Singapore. At first, he suffered from discomfort and homesickness. After settling in and adjusting, he immediately devoted himself to his studies. Meanwhile, Geok Choo, far away in Singapore, also worked hard, hoping to give her boyfriend a big surprise. Whenever he took a break from reading in his small room and gazed at the moon over London, Lee would unconsciously recall the first time he met her. Lee's grandfather was Cantonese and had moved to Singapore, where the family settled. Although they were not rich, their living conditions were decent, and Lee could attend school without worry. He was intelligent and diligent. At the age of 12, he entered Raffles Institution, a prestigious school in Singapore that few could get into. Born ambitious and competitive, he always aimed to be the best. His grades were outstanding, always among the top students, until one day a new rival appeared, Geok Choo. She outperformed him in their exams, pushing him to second place. Lee was unconvinced and regarded her as his strongest opponent. Even without asking around, he often heard others praising her. Curiosity grew in him. He wanted to see for himself what this talented girl looked like. The curiosity of youth soon turned into something more subtle, perhaps admiration, perhaps the beginnings of love. One day, when he least expected it, he saw her walking toward him in a white blouse and black skirt. His mind went blank. He only remembered her bright eyes and red lips, like a sunflower that seemed to bring light wherever she went. That first meeting was brief, and they did not exchange greetings. Their true interaction began later, thanks to a glue factory. In 1944, when Japanese forces invaded Singapore, schools were forced to close. At home, Lee wanted to do something meaningful, so he teamed up with Yang Yulin to start a glue-making business. Yang Yulin's wife happened to be Geok Choo's sister. When Geok Choo visited her sister's house, she and Lee met again. One day, Lee came to discuss business with Yang and saw a girl reading under the sunlight. He asked, "Is Yang Yulin at home? I have something to discuss with him." The girl looked up slowly, pointed inside, and said, "Lee, you're here. My brother-in-law is waiting for you." That was their first real conversation. Though it was brief, it stirred something deep in Lee's heart. From then on, their relationship grew steadily stronger. They often sat together discussing the situation in Singapore or guessing when the school would reopen. Sometimes they would chat for so long that they forgot to eat. When one of their stomachs growled, they'd both laugh. Then, Geok Choo would go to the kitchen and cook a bowl of seafood noodles for him. When Lee tasted her noodles for the first time, he didn't expect much. He thought she was a pampered lady who had never cooked before. But the noodles were delicious, rich and flavorful. From that day on, he never forgot that taste. Because of his excellence, Lee earned the Queen's Scholarship and went to study at Cambridge. In 1947, Geok Choo also arrived in the UK. When he saw her again, Lee was speechless. He simply hugged her tightly, unable to hold back his emotions. After talking about their long separation and loneliness, they made a bold decision: to get married. In December of that year, they secretly married in the UK without telling their parents. To avoid rumors, Geok Choo hung her wedding ring on a chain around her neck, smiling whenever she touched it. She might have worried that their hasty marriage would seem reckless, but she never regretted it. They encouraged and supported each other, both excelling in their studies and finding direction in life. Lee aspired to change Singapore's position in the world, so he chose politics. Geok Choo preferred a peaceful life and became a lawyer who fought for justice. Later, they confessed their marriage to their parents. To show sincerity, Lee returned home with betrothal gifts to propose formally. In 1950, they held a grand wedding in Singapore, surrounded by family and friends who wished them happiness. In 1952, Lee represented Singapore in negotiations with the British government. His logical, persuasive words drew attention and brought him into the public eye. During that time, all his documents were revised by Geok Choo. Even though she had just given birth to their first son, Lee Hsien Loong, and was still weak, she insisted on helping her husband. From then on, every one of Lee's speeches and documents was refined by his wife. With her talent, she could have been a leading figure in Singapore's legal field. But she gave up her promising career to support her husband and raise their children. Lee was deeply grateful. He knew that without her steadfast support, he could never have overcome so many political challenges. He cared deeply about her feelings and often picked flowers himself for her on anniversaries. He also had a gold pendant made for her, engraved with 8 characters. Virtuous wife and virtuous mother, virtue inside and out. Ever since receiving the pendant, she always wore it around her neck. Singapore's limited natural resources made water a pressing issue. Lee wanted to cooperate with Malaysia to develop both countries, but Malaysia's ethnic and religious policies caused conflict. Eventually, Malaysia expelled Singapore from the Federation. Lee cried bitterly on live television after the separation. As the leader of a young, struggling nation, he worried deeply about his people's future. Understanding his burden, Geok Choo personally drafted clauses ensuring that the Malaysian government must continue supplying water to Singapore, a contribution that became vital to the nation's survival. Lee's temper was known to be fiery, earning him the nickname the King of Political Street Fights. During interviews, he sometimes lashed out at reporters, but whenever Geok Choo softly called out, "Harry," his nickname, he immediately calmed down. Because of this, the media affectionately called her Lee Kuan Yew's anti-red flag, the woman who could soothe the most powerful man in Singapore. The people of Singapore were deeply grateful that God had sent them both Lee Kuan Yew and Geok Choo, 2 people who shared decades of love and dedication. But neither of them expected parting to come so soon. In 2003, while visiting the UK, Geok Choo suffered a stroke. To save her, Lee arranged for a Singaporean plane to be converted into a flying hospital. Afraid he might never hold her hand again, he wept when she opened her eyes and whispered, "If you leave, what will I do?" She gently comforted him, saying, "I'll live well. Don't worry too much." Sadly, in 2008, she suffered another stroke, this time more severe. Doctors said she had only 2 weeks left to live. Upon hearing this, she firmly told Lee, "I will definitely live longer than 2 weeks." Love can truly work miracles. She survived until 2010. After her passing, Lee seemed to lose his anchor. He quietly longed to reunite with his wife. In 2015, he fulfilled that promise, joining her in another world. The freshness of youth is pure, and in the rest of life, you will always be in my eyes. Lee Kuan Yew and Geok Choo spent a lifetime together, through hardship and glory. Singapore's prosperity cannot be separated from Lee Kuan Yew, nor from the gentle Geok Choo. One was the father of the nation, the other the mother of the nation. Together they built a strong and enduring Singapore.